Good evening, I'm Cathy Lewis, and here's what matters. For 15 years, the Elizabeth River Project has been hard at work tackling what seemed like an impossible task: to clean up the river. Lisa Godley reports that the little project that could just won a major award from the Environmental Protection Agency for its ongoing work to restore the Elizabeth River to full health.
The beautiful boats and large ships we often see cruising down the Elizabeth River corridors paint a scenic picture, but the fish with cancerous legions that you'll also find swimming here paint another. Centuries of growth have eaten away at the river's tidal wetlands, dramatically reducing the natural ecosystem. As a result, there's little greenery to help filter nitrogen, control erosion, or serve as a habitat to fish and wildlife. To make matters worse, for years the river was a dumping ground for industry. On the southern branch, a site known as Money Point houses some of the most contaminated river sediments in the world. It was once home to a wood treatment facility that coated timber with tar. The tar creosote washed into the river and sank to the bottom. The result? Fish that look like this.
The health of everything that lives in the water has been compromised, and the well-being of those people living near them has been diminished.
The EPA's Director of Hazardous Site Cleanup, Cathy Lewis, was one of many on hand as a group known for its commitment to restoring the Elizabeth River launched a new campaign. For years, members of the Elizabeth River Project have told us the goo must go. Their efforts resulted in many cleanup projects by a lot of people. Now they're taking an even bolder step to make the river both fishable and swimmable by 2020. Some companies, like the Hampton Roads Sanitation District, are putting their money where their discharge is. WHRO plans to invest $100 million to reduce what it puts into the river.
WHRO is committed to reduce our nutrient discharge from our Army-based treatment plant at the Norfolk International Terminals by nearly 80% by 2014.
And WHRO is not alone. There are 60 industries with the title River Star, committed to reducing the pollution they put into the river and restoring the wetlands. Once labeled Virginia's most toxic tributary, the Elizabeth River has experienced 15 years of success thanks to toxic cleanups by industry, the government, and citizens. Supporters of the cleanup effort, like Xander Laney, believe that if everyone does their part, the Elizabeth River can be both a robust commercial waterway and a recreational river.
Good morning. I would just like to say before I give my speech that in 2020 I will come here with my kids and have them swim in this beautiful river.
Xander is a member of the Green Team, a group of gifted students that spent the last year shadowing the Watershed Action Team and coming up with some ideas of their own.
We're convincing families to do better things for the river, and I'm happy to see that these things are all happening right now.
What are some of the things you're convincing families to do?
Well, we're convincing them to make rain gardens, so that way that, you know how the gutters are always like around the driveway? Well, we don't like that because it's like your cars are all there and a whole bunch of pollution is there. So we're having it go in the rain gardens, fueling a whole bunch of flowers, plants, everything.
The Elizabeth River Project's founder and executive director, Marjorie Mayfield Jackson, says when it comes to river cleanup, every little bit helps.
And it's everything from scoop the poop for your dog so it doesn't run into the river and cause the bacteria that makes the river not swimmable, to planting native plants, to riding your bike more so that we reduce air pollution that then falls into the river.
Supporters say tackling a problem that many thought was insurmountable hasn't been easy, but the work done over the past 12 years has made a difference. And if they can one day eliminate this and allow this, it's well worth the effort. For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
It is an extraordinary story, and it got its start at the hand of Marjorie Mayfield Jackson, who is the executive director of the Elizabeth River Project. Pete Freeman earns his living on the water. He's a waterman from Hampton who plies the waters in Norfolk. Frank Daniel is the regional director for the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. And Scott Harper reports on environmental issues for the Virginian Pilot. Welcome, and thanks to all of you for being with us.
Thank you.
Marjorie, I have to just tell you, when you said it had been 15 to 17 years, depending on how you look at it, maybe 17 since that kitchen table conversation. I was really shocked by that. I mean, it doesn't seem like all that long ago, but look at this progress. It's really amazing. You must feel very good about it.
I feel good about the partnerships with folks like Frank and the industries and the schools. Everybody started to care about this river, and because of that, we are really come a long way. And
but the expectation piece of this is such an interesting part of the story, because in the beginning, and I think you've told this story before, but if I recall correctly, a kitchen table is somehow involved.
Right. There were 4 of us around the kitchen table in 1991, and people had told us the river was dead. Nothing you can do about it, if they even knew the name of the Elizabeth River. And we just thought, is that something that we want to accept as a community? And we didn't know if anybody would care. We thought, we'll just go out and see. And so the first thing we did was do some interviews and ask business leaders and civic groups, what do you think about the river? Is it dirty? And if so, should something be done about it? Yeah. And it was really the business community more than anybody that said, this is the lifeblood of our economy. We would love to see it cleaner, but don't point fingers.
But it's impossible. So
they didn't say it was impossible.
Yeah.
They believed that we could do it if we didn't point fingers, and that's been our approach the whole way.
Really interesting. So the idea was that relationship issue was really key to the whole concept.
Yes, collaboration.
And so you started with this kitchen table conversation, the 4 of you. I'm just curious, why the river? Why not something else? I mean, what was it about the river that really spoke to you?
Well, I lived on the river on Scotts Creek in Portsmouth. I was a reporter at the Virginian Pilot. Yeah. Scott wasn't there yet. And I wasn't covering the environment. I just came home every day to this beautiful corner of the Elizabeth. And we had night herons roosting in our mulberry tree, and you could see the fish jumping. And it was so peaceful and beautiful, but the headlines were about new studies showing cancer in the fish. I was in my mid-30s, and as you know, Cathy, reporters are supposed to be objective and not get involved. And I thought, I really would like to get involved in this. Yes. I'd like to see something different for our community. So I quit my job at the paper, and we were all volunteers. I waited tables. And,
that's amazing.
And helped just organize the community to do something about it with a lot of other people.
You know, it's such a great story, because it really is very inspiring when you think of what you can do when you find that thing about which you're passionate, that thing that really drives you and really drives your actions and forces you to take a look at what you're doing with your life and maybe make because certainly it was a great thing to be doing, reporting for the paper, but this sounds like to me to be the thing that really has driven your life.
Well, you could act.
Yes.
You didn't, as a reporter, sometimes you just have to stand back, and if nobody's doing anything, you just have to say, well, darn.
Yeah, exactly.
And here, it was just a chance to really take action about something I cared deeply about.
And so you talk about those relationships. How did you figure out who to talk to? How did you figure out how to bring them together into relationship? Many of them were probably competitors in businesses along the river.
It was very polarized then, and Frank will remember. Government, yes. Yeah. Government, industries, citizens. The Elizabeth River was such a problem that these entities just weren't talking to each other.
Right.
So we did need a model, and we went to Michigan, where they had a model of different committees, one for citizens, one for government, one for industry, that would go off and make a list of what the river's problems were, feeling all safe, and then they'd have to exchange lists and talk to each other. Pete was involved at that time as a waterman. And out of that comes this, oh, I understand some of what you're talking about. We had clam bakes at that time. We had lots of beer. It was important to get people talking to each other. And people began to see, well, there are some things we can agree on. And eventually they
start there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And Frank Daniel, who's the regional director of the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, you too would agree. You said as well that this issue of the not pointing fingers really was key to the success of this project.
It really was. Unfortunately, in environmental protection, too often we want to argue among ourselves about who caused what and how about going to solve the problem. And the key to the Elizabeth River project is we came together in partnership, and the synergy we have there is so much greater than any one of us that's involved. And we decided to set our differences aside, work together to figure out ways that we can bring the river back. And it's been, I think, better than our wildest dreams at this point in time.
Pete Freeman, you are somebody who has earned your living on those beautiful, beautiful waters. And I wonder if you would describe for us what the river was like back in the day, back 17, 20 years ago. What was it like?
Well, back in 18, 20 years ago, the water was, well, we didn't have as much ships going up there. We didn't have as much pollution in the water. The water was good and clear. But when we started getting the coal ships in, that's when we started having problems.
And that was what, about 25 years ago?
About 25, 30
yeah.
years ago, when the ships started coming in here. And when the ships come in and they dump the bilges and all this stuff in the water, and you can see them doing it and watch them doing it, and you know, you can't do nothing about it, nothing you can do about it. So back then, when I first started water up and crabbing and Tanner's Creek Ball and right at the NIT, I could run a trout line. We'd have crab pots then. You could run a trout line there, and I could catch 15 or 20 barrels of crabs and by 10 o'clock and go home. Now, NIT has dug it all out. We just got a little bar left, so all we got, we can crab pot on. It's all dug out, and we still catch crabs. I still catch crabs there.
Are things getting better then?
The water is so clear right now, I can see the bottom in 6 foot of water. Now, it wasn't clear about a month and a half ago.
That's amazing.
But it's cleared up because the water temperature goes down, the water clears up.
That's interesting.
And grasses, they used to have a lot of grasses on the bottom. We don't have grasses no more. The grass, something killed the grass. Pollution in the water has killed the grasses. And so that's what hurting us.
And this is really such an ongoing issue. Scott Harper, how long have you been at the pilot now?
A long time. 95.
Yeah.
95.
So you've been covering this for a while.
Yeah.
And give us a sense of what changes you've seen over time.
Well, I guess the big thing, and we were talking about this earlier, was I think attitude. Really, I mean, I think a lot of people initially were very skeptical that something like this could happen. You know, it was at a time when you hear, you know, stories. Everyone kind of remembers the stories of really intense pollution and rivers catching on fire and all that kind of stuff. And the Elizabeth was kind of in that category. You know, it was like it was given up for dead. And I think what Marjorie and her group have really done is kind of get people to rethink that, you know, it's not lost and that it is possible, and that you have people participating and thinking, like we saw those kids, you know. I mean, they don't remember any of that stuff.
Sure.
I mean, they're thinking ahead, and that's one thing that I've noticed. Yeah.
And the swimmable, fishable goal, that's something that wasn't even on the radar screen in the beginning, right?
In the beginning, a few people would say, well, maybe we should aim for that. And everybody go, oh, that's just not practical. The Elizabeth
now you're just talking crazy. Come on now.
Yeah. And then the last stakeholder team that we had this past year, again, it was the scientists and the government folks and the citizens all coming together, and they said, we've made so much progress and we're all working together so well and so many big projects are on the way. Let's aim for that now.
This River Stars program seems to me has really been key to a lot of that success, engaging the companies that really make their living along that water.
We've seen a huge turnaround, a paradigm shift in the industrial community.
And so what does it mean to be a River Star, and what kinds of projects are they up to?
We have 63 industries. Most of the large industries on the river are River Stars, and what it means is that they have gone above and beyond what Frank's requiring of them in terms of the law to do extra things for the river, either oyster reefs or wetland restoration, or prevent pollution in ways that the law isn't expecting of them, so that their impact is greatly reduced. And we require that they document their success and that they have a peer review each year by other River Stars.
Wow. And
then we recognize them at a banquet.
And again, that's a completely voluntary program that these companies agree to participate in and agree to be held by. I mean, it's a very, very interesting program. You know, I wonder, and I won't ask you this because I think this will be uncomfortable, but Scott Harper, as you think about let's got this. As you think about this, do you see any, I mean, we've talked about the River Stars and the cooperative companies. Are there bad actors in this story?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the river would not have gotten that way without bad actors. Sure, I do think that a lot of the pollution that is still in the Elizabeth, and let's not forget that it is still a very deeply troubled river, but a lot of the pollution that caused this, and I'm sure Frank knows this as well, and can talk to it a lot more in detail than I can, but it's from a time when there were no regulations and there were no laws and there was no ethic about being clean and responsible, and so bad actor, yeah, but it's more of a we didn't really know
of a
actor.
past issue than a present issue.
Yeah, to some degree, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I still write stories about people knowingly, you know, dumping stuff and cutting corners and getting caught, and so yeah, I mean, it still happens, but I do think that there, not only with the change in law and kind of the green revolution that we're seeing now, that there's more of an ethic out there of, you know, I just can't do this. I can't dig a ditch and throw stuff in the back there.
And I wonder, Frank, as you think about that issue of the ethic that's grown up, what kind of role does that play in the work that you're trying to do?
Oh, it's tremendously much more easy today than it was when I first started 29 years ago in this business, when you'd go and inspect an industry and just get the cold shoulder and really no cooperation at all. That's turned around 5,000% now. And most large companies have environmental staffs. The military, which we have a tremendous amount of that in this area, have all hired very, very good environmental staffs, a lot from our organization. And work with us very cooperatively. There's just a totally different attitude around here now. But there still are some people, as Scott says, that we have to watch and we have trouble with from time to time.
Right. And so to what, you know, I'm really starting to see this issue coming up across all kinds of conversations, particularly, you know, we think about this presidential race that we have underway. I mean, I suspect for the first time you're really going to get a much larger segment of the community wondering about the positions that a prospective president will have coming into office. In fact, just this week, there's a big conversation at Nauticus looking at these issues of the policies that the next president should be looking at when it comes to the environment. So, Marjorie Mayfield Jackson, as you look at that issue, give us a sense of who has the most impact in the river. Is that a federal issue? Is it a state issue? Is it a local issue?
I don't think it's any one of us. It really is everybody, down to the citizen with the backyard and what he's putting on his lawn, up to the federal government and the way that the Navy is working now to prevent pollution and clean up past problems at some of its landfills. Do you
have just an observation that it seems to me that there are so many more people, individuals, you used to think of this as a corporate problem, you know, the corporate players along the river or along any body of water. And it seems to me that people are kind of beginning to get that message. And you talked about it a little bit earlier, you know, the issue with the fact that things that we do on a daily basis have an impact on the river, even though we don't live at the waterfront. I think there was always sort of a sense that you had to live there in order to have an impact on it, positively or negatively. Or
you were detached from it, you just didn't see what was being caused. I think a big thing we have to realize today is industry's done a lot to clean up the river in terms of meeting point source regulations, but the individuals that live here in Tidewater have to realize how much they are contributing to what's going on in the river.
In what ways?
Well, the fertilizer we put on our yards, a lot of that washes off when we have our thunderstorms and rain events in the summertime. It goes right into the river, and that's a big source of why we have algae blooms. It's not the only source, as HRSD is trying to clean up a lot of the nutrients they put in there.
Road Sanitation District.
Exactly. But individuals have to realize they have a role to play in that as well. Stormwater runoff is a very, very large problem in the Elizabeth River, and it's a much tougher nut to crack than it was to clean up what industry was putting in the river.
Scott Harper, you've been writing about some of these issues as well. What do you think are the ones that really need our attention at this point?
Well, a couple things. The thing that Frank was talking about, stormwater is the biggest new source of pollution, right? I mean, and that comes from so many sources that you can't even measure it. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it's easy to measure what an industry or a sewage plant is generating, but they don't even know how much stuff is washing off of storm drains, lawns, you know, pick your poison. So yeah, it is down to that level of, you know, oh, I mean, I have to do something too.
Right. And
so,
the whole picking up after your dog and these kinds of things as well. Yeah, it's interesting. And Pete, as you ply the waters, tell us what a typical day is like for you.
Well, it's
early.
It's getting up early and going to work, for one thing.
What time do you get up in the morning?
At 4 o'clock.
Wow.
And my wife gets up and fixes my breakfast every morning, too.
You're a lucky man. Because I tell you what, if I was Mrs. Pete, that would not be happening.
And she's been doing that as we've been married.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's good.
And but the day when you get out there, what do you do?
Well, I start from the boat harbor and I run across over to NIT. That's where I start at most of the time. And work my way up. And it's just a typical day of dumping crab pots and getting the crabs out and culling the crabs out and culling different big ones here, little ones here, whatever, and throwing excess stuff overboard and whatever. Yeah. It's just something that you did all your life, and it's the same old thing over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
But getting back to some of the things that you're talking about, the fertilizer and stuff like this, that's one of the big problems, because that's what's killed all the grasses and the shorelines, and it don't kill the regular reed grass that we call it. It don't kill that, but the grasses in the bottom in the sand where it grows up to hide all the little crabs and stuff, that's what it kills.
And so the crabs don't have any place to hide.
The little crab like that got a chance.
Yeah.
And when he sheds, it's either a croaker or rockfish or something waiting for him. And so that's one of the big problems. And as far as the crab is concerned, now I've seen the time that you could walk right at NIT, the grass, grass, all the way out on Towns Creek Bar, and up to your knees in grass.
Yeah.
But you don't see a spear of grass no more.
Yeah.
So it's got to be coming from the pollution, from the land. And fertilizer is the biggest issue. And I hate to say fertilizer because the fertilizer company don't like for us to talk about fertilizer.
Well.
But I'm going up the creek now from Hampton Boulevard Bridge. I'm going up the creek, and you know, on the point, I have to go up the creek past that little creek up there, there's people's houses up in the storm. Water goes up in their yards, you know, this last storm. And all I could see was stuff coming down the river.
It's a huge problem.
I mean, green stuff.
It's a huge
black
problem.
Stuff.
Pete, thank you for being with us. Pete Freeman is a waterman. I'm going to look for you on the Elizabeth River, or on the Lafayette, because you said I could get some crabs anytime I wanted, which I appreciate. Okay. Scott Harper, thank you for being with us as well. And Frank Daniel, thanks so much for being here. Marjorie, continued success with the Elizabeth River Project.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. And I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought and a look at some of your comments. The story of the Elizabeth River Project is something about which we should all be proud. It's really a national model that's gotten its start in a very iconic way. As you heard Marjorie Mayfield Jackson say, some Hampton Roads residents, among them Marjorie, she has been one of our guests tonight. They all got together around a kitchen table, started sharing their concerns for the Elizabeth River, but they didn't stop there. They organized, they got informed, and they enlisted the help of those who live and work at the river's edge, investing all of them in the health and the future of the river. So many great ideas get their start in this way. Town Bank, one of the leading regional banks in Hampton Roads, famously got its start in Bob Aston's garage. And in another garage in Los Altos, California, a young man named Steve Jobs created a personal computer that changed the meaning of the word apple. Ordinary people come up with extraordinary ideas every day, but the thing that links those that truly make a difference is the power and the passion to take it to the next level. Fortunately, for a region that draws so much of its life from the water, the Elizabeth River Project has taken it to the next level time and time again. And now a check at the What Matters answering machine about our show on immigration.
The television show I just witnessed with Cathy Lewis as the host, entitled What Matters. I just wanted to leave a comment that it was really well done and to give Cathy kudos. Although I came in on the end of it, they were talking about the election. I thought her commentary was right on point. I'm actually a professor at Norfolk State University, and I was very proud of WHRO and what it does. And I've been a supporter of yours since I've been here in the Norfolk area. I just wanted to tell you kudos and great job to Cathy.
It was my mom. No, I'm just kidding. We had another call. Thank you very much. It's very kind. We had another call from a viewer who said that our roundtable conversation on the elections was unbalanced. She said we had 4 Democrats and only 1 Republican on the panel. Well, just in case anybody else has that misunderstanding, let me take just a moment to show you the panel and to walk through the role of all of the participants. Our Democratic blogger is Vivian Page, that's her. Our Republican blogger is Brian Kerwin, that's him. Kimball Payne is a reporter for the Daily Press. That means he doesn't express an opinion one way or the other. He just reports on what he's seeing and hearing, covering the campaign, and he's hearing a lot. And Don Lozado is an editorial page writer for the Virginian Pilot. He does get to have an opinion because he writes opinion pieces, but they're certainly not exclusively in one camp or the other. And the 5th person is yours truly, and my job is to create a safe space for everybody to be heard. If you don't think we're getting that done, or if you have a suggestion, it is very easy to be in touch. Just give us a call at 889-9437 or send us a letter, 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23505. You can email us at whatmatters@whro.org or check out our website at whatmatters.tv. And that's also where you can sign up for a weekly e-bit, which will let you know what we're working on each week. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we begin a series of conversations with congressional candidates whose names you'll find on the November 4th ballot. We'll see you then.